This altar does not receive the composed version. This altar receives what you actually brought in with you today. Bring all your pain at the altar of fire. Stop where you are. Before you arrange yourself, before you compose your face and your posture and the version of yourself that looks like it has things together. Stop. This altar does not receive the composed version. This altar receives what you actually brought in with you today. The thing you have been managing in the background while you functioned. The weight you picked up before you even got out of bed. The fear that sat with you in traffic. The grief you swallowed before the first conversation of the day. The anger you have been carrying so long it stopped feeling like anger and started feeling like personality. Bring it. All of it. The altar of fire does not ask you to minimize what you came in carrying. It asks you to lay it down. And fire does not handle things gently. Fire transforms. What enters as pain does not leave as pain. What enters as grief does not leave as grief. What enters as rage, as shame, as the quiet devastation of a life that has not yet matched the vision you were given. None of it leaves the same way it arrived. That is the nature of fire. That is the nature of this altar. And that is why you are here. We begin. Ancestors who have walked through fire before me, I call you now. Not as distant presences, as those who know exactly what I am carrying, because you carried versions of it too. You know what it is to work and not see the return. You know what it is to love and be left with the wreckage. You know what it is to build and watch what you built get taken. You know what it is to be faithful to a vision that the visible world refused to confirm. You survived all of it. Some of you barely. Some of you with scars that never fully healed. But you survived. And because you survived, I exist. And because I exist, this line is not finished. Stand with me at this altar today. Guardians of the ancestral fire, I call you. You who tend the flame that does not consume but refines. You who have received the pain of every generation that came before mine. Receive mine today. Receive it fully. Hold nothing back from the fire. Ancient ones who know what lives beneath the pain, who can see the frequency that the suffering has been sitting on top of. I am here to uncover it. Work through me now. So shall it be. I am going to name what I brought to this altar today, not in the language of prayer that softens everything, into something bearable, in the language of truth, because the fire can handle the truth. The pain of financial pressure, the kind that wakes you up at 3 in the morning and runs calculations in your mind that do not add up. The kind that makes you feel like the ground under your life is not solid. Like one unexpected expense separates you from a crisis you cannot recover from. The kind that makes you smile in public while internally you are doing the math on what can wait and what cannot. That pain is real. It is not a character flaw. It is not evidence that you are doing life wrong. It is the weight of a system that was designed to keep certain people in perpetual survival mode. And it is the residue of a bloodline that was stripped of the economic foundation it was supposed to pass forward. Bring that pain to the altar. Lay it down. The pain of relationships that drain. The person who takes your energy and returns nothing. The dynamic that requires you to make yourself smaller to maintain the peace. The love that came with conditions you were not told about until you violated one. The friendship that disappeared the moment you started rising. The family connection that feels like obligation, wearing the costume of love. The loneliness that lives inside relationships that should make loneliness impossible. Bring that pain to the altar. Lay it down. The pain of the body. The exhaustion that is not about sleep. The tension that lives in your shoulders and your jaw and the back of your neck. The way your body holds the stress of everything you are managing. the illness that arrived when the pressure became too much. The physical symptoms that your doctor treats as isolated events, but that you know are connected to something deeper. The body that has been the container for every unexpressed emotion, every swallowed response, every moment you chose function over feeling. Bring that pain to the altar. Lay it down. The pain of the vision deferred. The thing you know you were built for that has not yet materialized. The gap between what you can see internally and what the external world is currently showing you. The frustration of being capable and underutilized. Of knowing the answer and not being given the room to deliver it. Of watching people with less clarity and less capacity occupy the spaces that should have your name on them. Bring that pain to the altar. Lay it down. And the deepest pain, the one underneath all the others, the fear that maybe this is just how it is, that maybe the life you are shown in vision is not actually available to you, that maybe you have been praying into a frequency that is not responding, that maybe the effort required to keep going is beginning to exceed the evidence that it is worth it. Bring that pain to the altar, especially that one, because that one is the altar's oldest trophy. The moment when a carrier in the line almost stopped, when the accumulated weight almost won. That moment has lived in your bloodline before, and your ancestors walked through it, and now you will too. Not because the pain is not real, but because the fire is realer. We go to the fire now. Altar of fire, receive what I have named. Receive the financial pressure. Receive the relational drain. Receive the body that has been carrying what the mind could not process. Receive the deferred vision. Receive the doubt that tried to make a home in the space where faith was supposed to live. I lay it all on this altar. Every piece of it. Nothing withheld, nothing minimized, nothing dressed up in spiritual language to make it easier to offer. Raw, real, all of it. Fire. Do what only fire can do. Do not comfort it, transform it. So shall it be. Now we go into the flame together, because laying the pain down is not the end of this prayer. It is the beginning. Most prayer stops at the laying down. It deposits the burden and asks for relief. This altar asks for something different. It asks you to step into the fire with what you brought. To stand in the flame, to not flinch, to let the heat do the work of separating what is you from what was placed on you. Because not all of what you are carrying belongs to you. Some of it was handed down. Some of it was assigned by a system. Some of it was absorbed from people who did not know they were transferring it. The fire knows the difference. Stand in it and let it work. Ancestors, speak now through the flame. Tell me what in this pain is mine to carry and what is mine to release. Tell me what was placed on my nervous system before I had the language to refuse it. Tell me what I absorbed in childhood from rooms full of unspoken fear. Tell me what was passed through the womb, through the blood, through the silence that surrounded me in my earliest years. I am in the fire. I can receive the truth now. Speak. So shall it be. Here is what the fire reveals. The financial pressure you carry has two sources. The first source is real and present. The actual numbers, the actual gap, the actual system that makes it harder for some people to build and sustain wealth than others. That is real. The fire does not minimize it. But the second source is ancestral. It is the frequency of lack that was installed in your bloodline across generations of enforced poverty. Your body learned to anticipate scarcity before scarcity arrived. Your nervous system learned to treat abundance as temporary, to brace for the loss even while the gain was still present. The fire separates these two sources. The real and present pressure it leaves for you to address with strategy and action. The ancestral frequency of lack, it burns, right now, in this prayer. Feel it burning. The cellular memory that said there is not enough. The inherited instruction that said, People from this line do not get to have certain things. The frequency that made you good at surviving and unfamiliar with thriving. Fire. Burn the ancestral frequency of lack out of my nervous system, out of my cellular memory, out of the inherited instruction running beneath my conscious mind. Let the survival frequency be replaced by the original abundance frequency my bloodline was designed to carry. Not comfort, abundance. The kind my most powerful ancestors were building before the interruption. Restore it now. So shall it be. The relational pain you carry also has two sources. The first source is the actual people, the real dynamics, the specific relationships that take more than they give. Those are real. And the fire will give you clarity on which ones to release and which ones to restructure. But the second source is older. It is the relational template that was installed by watching the people around you relate to each other. The template that normalized drain as love, that taught you that keeping the peace mattered more than keeping your power, that showed you relationships where one person perpetually gives and the other perpetually takes, as if this is the natural order. You did not choose that template. You absorbed it before you had a choice, and then you replicated it, not out of weakness, out of familiarity. The body moves toward what it recognizes, even when what it recognizes is harmful. The fire burns the template. Fire, burn the relational template that taught me to equate love with depletion. Burn the pattern that keeps me in dynamics that require my smallness as the price of connection. Burn the cellular memory that finds draining relationships familiar and reciprocal relationships suspicious. Let the new template be written in the frequency of the fire. Let it say, I am worthy of relationships that fill me. I am worthy of love that does not cost me my sovereignty. I am worthy of connection that recognizes my full capacity and is not threatened by it. Let that template become the default. In my body, in my choices, in every room I walk into from this day forward. So shall it be. The body pain has a message. The fire reveals it. Your body has been translating what your circumstances could not hold. Every time you swallowed a response that needed to be spoken. Every time you performed stability when you were fragmenting internally. The body stored it. Every time the pressure of your life exceeded the support available to you, the body stored it. And some of what the body stored is not even from this lifetime. It is ancestral compression. The unprocessed survival responses of people who could not stop to process, who had to keep moving, who had to function, who held everything in the body because there was nowhere else to put it, and passed the compression through the blood. Fire, move through my body now. Every stored response that was never allowed to complete its cycle. Let it complete now. Every ancestral compression that arrived through the blood. Burn it out of the tissue, out of the fascia, out of the nervous system, out of the cellular memory of every organ that has been holding what the mind refused to feel. Let my body return to its original frequency, strong, clear, uncompressed, carrying only what belongs to this present life. Nothing from before, nothing that was never mine. My body is the altar, and the fire is moving through it now. So shall it be. The vision deferred has a reason. The fire shows it. The gap between your vision and your current reality is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of timing, and it is evidence of preparation. Some of what you are still waiting for could not arrive until this work was done, until the frequency of your bloodline was clear enough to hold it without collapsing under the weight. The vision is not late. You are being made ready for it, and this altar, this fire, this prayer is part of the readiness. Fire, burn away every internal obstacle that has been standing between me and the full manifestation of what I was shown. the self-doubt that dressed itself as humility, the fear of visibility that dressed itself as patience, the unworthiness that dressed itself as waiting for the right time. Burn the costumes, reveal what was underneath. A person who was always ready, who is more than ready now, who is standing at the altar of fire, asking to be made fully available to the purpose that claimed them before they were born. I am available. I am ready. I am on fire. So shall it be. Bring all your pain at the altar of fire. We go deeper, because there is a layer of this prayer that most people do not reach. Not because it is hidden, because it requires you to stay in the fire longer than is comfortable. To not retreat into relief before the work is complete. To trust the flame when it burns the things you did not know you were attached to. You are still in the fire. Stay. The layer beneath the pain is the identity that pain built. Listen to that carefully. When pain stays long enough, the mind builds an identity around it. Not out of weakness, out of survival. The mind builds a story about who you are in relation to the pain. And that story becomes the lens through which every new experience is filtered. I am the person who works hard and gets passed over. I am the person who gives everything in relationships and receives little in return. I am the person who almost makes it. I am the person whose breakthrough is always one more obstacle away. I am the person who carries more than their share. These identities feel like truth because they have been confirmed by enough experience to feel like pattern. But they are not truth. They are pain narratives. And the fire burns pain narratives. Ancestors, speak into this layer. Tell me who I am beneath the story the pain built. Tell me the name that was given to this line before the suffering began. Tell me the original frequency, the identity that was here before the altar of poverty installed its version. I am listening. I am in the fire. I am ready to hear it. So shall it be. The fire speaks. You are not the accumulation of what happened to your bloodline. You are the accumulation of what your bloodline survived, built, protected, and passed forward despite what happened. Those are two completely different identities. One is defined by the wound. The other is defined by the warrior who carried the wound and kept going. Your ancestors were not victims of their circumstances. They were warriors inside their circumstances. And that warrior frequency is in your blood, not as a metaphor, as a literal inheritance. The endurance that brought your lineage through things that should have ended it. The intelligence that found solutions in impossible conditions. The spiritual depth that maintained connection to something larger when everything visible was against them. The love that kept building for children who had not yet been born, who had not yet been imagined, who were abstractions of hope in generations that had every reason to stop hoping. They built for you, across generations of not knowing if you would ever arrive. You are the arrival. Is your identity. Not the one the pain built, the one the bloodline built. Fire, burn the pain identity. Every story that begins with, I am the person who cannot. Every narrative that ends with, and so I have learned not to expect. Every protective conclusion the mind built to prevent the disappointment of hoping and not receiving. Burn them, all of them, and in the space where they stood, let the warrior identity rise. The one that says, I am from a line that did not stop. I am from a line that found a way. I am from a line that built in impossible conditions. I carry that capacity, not as inspiration, as cellular fact. So shall it be. Now we address the deepest layer, the unforgiveness. Not the kind that is easy to name, The kind that has been so integrated into your operating system that it no longer feels like unforgiveness. It feels like wisdom. It feels like protection. It feels like appropriate response to what was actually done. The person who betrayed you when you were most vulnerable. The institution that took what was yours and called it legal. The system that assessed your worth and came back with a number that had nothing to do with your actual value. The people in your family who should have protected you and did not. The ones who should have seen you and looked away. The ones who diminished you to manage their own inadequacy. And the ones who did not even know they were doing it. Who passed damage forward, thinking they were passing love. The anger at all of it is legitimate. The fire does not ask you to pretend otherwise. But unforgiveness stored in the body is acid. It does not damage the person it is aimed at. It damages the container. It has been sitting in your tissue, in your choices, in the walls you built that kept out the harm, but also kept out the good. In the guardedness that became permanent. In the trust that you stopped offering because the risk of losing it again felt unsurvivable. The fire asks you to bring the unforgiveness to the altar, not to excuse what was done, not to pretend it did not happen, not to reconcile with people who have demonstrated they are unsafe, but to release the acid from your own body, to stop carrying the punishment for what they did inside your own nervous system, to reclaim the energy that unforgiveness has been consuming, because that energy belongs to your vision, and you need it back. Altar of fire, I bring the unforgiveness now. I bring the names I have not spoken in prayer before, the faces that still tighten something in my chest when they arise. Carry a charge. I am not releasing them because what they did was acceptable. I am releasing them because I am no longer willing to let what they did occupy space in my body. That space belongs to me. I am taking it back. Every wall I built to protect myself from further damage, I ask the fire to transform. Not remove, transform. From a wall that keeps everything out, to a gate that I control, that opens for what is safe and closes for what is not, that operates from discernment rather than from fear. That is the difference between a closed heart and a protected one. I am not asking to be naive. I am asking to be free. Fire, take the unforgiveness, take the acid, take the walls, and give me back the energy they were consuming. Give me back the trust that became available again once the wound was treated. Give me back the openness that is not recklessness, but is the natural state of a heart that has been through fire and came out refined. So shall it be. You are still in the flame, and you are not burning. You are being refined. There is a difference. Burning destroys. Refinement removes what was never supposed to be there, and reveals what always was. Gold does not become gold in the fire. It reveals that it was gold all along. The fire only burns what was covering it. You are the gold. You have always been the gold. Everything that covered it, the pain, the inherited patterns, the installed limitations, the pain identities, the unforgiveness stored as protection, that is what is burning, not you, never you. Bring all your pain at the altar of fire. The fire is doing its final work now. You have brought everything. You have stood in the flame. You have not flinched. And now the altar is ready to return something to you. Not comfort, power. The specific power that was locked inside the pain you brought. Because pain is not only destruction. Pain carries compressed energy. Energy that was activated by the wounding and had nowhere constructive to go. It became the low-grade anxiety, the hypervigilance, the survival drive that exhausted you, the protective anger that guarded you but also isolated you. All of that was energy, misdirected, compressed, trapped inside the pain structure. The fire releases it, and now it is available, not as pain, as fuel. Ancestors supervise this return. What was stored in the financial pressure, let it become economic clarity, the sharpness that comes from having navigated scarcity with intelligence. the strategic mind that was forged in conditions that required creativity to survive. Let that intelligence now be applied to building, not just surviving, building. What was stored in the relational pain, let it become relational discernment, the wisdom that only comes from having loved in difficult conditions, the ability to read a room, to read a person, to sense what is real beneath what is performed. Let that discernment now be applied to choosing. Choosing who receives access, choosing who is safe to build with, choosing from a place of wisdom rather than from a place of need. What was stored in the body pain, let it become somatic intelligence. The body that has been through fire knows things the untested body does not. It knows its own signals. It knows when something is wrong before the mind catches up. It knows the difference between real danger and inherited fear. Let that intelligence now be a resource, a guidance system, a compass that the fire refined into precision. What was stored in the deferred vision, let it become unshakable conviction. The person who held a vision through years of non-confirmation, who did not require the external world to validate what they knew internally, who showed up day after day for something they could not yet prove. That is not ordinary faith. That is forged faith. The kind that the fire made, and nothing can unmake. Let that conviction now accelerate what is already in motion. Let it become the force that closes the gap between the vision and the manifestation. So shall it be. Altar of fire, I receive what you are returning. I receive it with open hands. I do not receive it with the posture of someone who is not sure they deserve it. I receive it as the person who stood in the flame and did not run. That posture has been earned today. In this hour, in this prayer, I earned the right to receive what the fire returned, and I am claiming it now. The economic clarity, the relational discernment, the somatic intelligence, the forged faith, and one more thing, the thing the fire always returns to the one who brought everything and held nothing back. Peace. Not the peace that requires circumstances to be favorable, the peace that exists inside the fire, the stillness at the center of the flame, the knowing that nothing that was supposed to reach you has been lost, that everything is on its way, that the suffering was not punishment, it was preparation, and the preparation is complete. That peace, I receive it into my bones, into my nervous system, into the cellular memory that has been running anxiety as its default frequency. Let peace be the new default. Let it be the frequency from which I now operate, the frequency from which I make decisions, the frequency from which I build, the frequency from which I love, the frequency from which I receive what is being sent. So shall it be. We seal this prayer now. Ancestors of my bloodline, I thank you for standing with me in the fire today, for not letting me retreat before the work was complete, for showing me what was in the pain that I could not see when I was only trying to survive it, for receiving what I brought and returning what the fire revealed. I honor you. Guardians of the ancestral fire, I thank you for tending the flame that refined and did not destroy, for knowing the difference between what needed to burn and what needed to be protected. I honor you. Ancient ones who know the original frequency of this bloodline, I thank you for holding it intact through every generation of disruption, for making sure it was here when I arrived, for making sure I could find it when I was ready. I honor you, and to every ancestor who brought their pain to their own altar, in whatever form that altar took, in whatever language they had available, in whatever tradition survived the disruption, in the private dark of their own nights, when the only altar was the floor, and the only fire was the one they carried inside. I honor you. You prayed without seeing the result. I am the result. I am standing in fire that does not burn me because of the fire you carried before me. This prayer is not only mine, it belongs to the line, and the line is not finished. I carry it forward, from this altar, from this fire, From this hour, with everything the flame returned, the altar has received, the fire has refined, the bloodline continues, and we are not the same as when we began. So shall it be. So shall it be.
Bring all your pain at the altar of fire. The fire is still burning. We have not moved away from the altar. We have gone deeper into it. Because the pain you brought in the opening of this prayer was the surface layer. What you named was the present life evidence of something much older. And the altar of fire is not satisfied with surface work. It goes to the source. It goes to the original wound. The one that was opened before your name existed. The one that your bloodline has been bleeding from across generations, without being able to name what happened. That wound is what we are addressing now. Not as history, as a living thing, because it is living. It lives in your nervous system. It lives in the way your body responds to authority. It lives in the way your chest tightens when someone in power looks at you like you do not belong in the room. It lives in the way you sometimes feel like an imposter in spaces that were built for people who look nothing like your ancestors. It lives in the reflex that makes you smaller before anyone asks you to shrink. That reflex is not yours. It was trained into the bloodline by people and systems that needed your lineage to stay small so that their expansion had room to operate. Today we name that wound the altar, and we bring fire to it. Ancestors who carried the original wound. I call you now, the ones who were the first in the line to experience what disruption does to a people. The displacement. The moment the ground that was yours was declared someone else's. The moment the name that was yours was replaced with a number or a foreign word that sat in the mouth like something borrowed. The moment the language that carried your cosmology, your prayers, your understanding of who you were in relation to the cosmos, was taken from the children before it could fully root. The moment the spiritual framework that organized your relationship to the ancestors, to the land, to each other, was declared invalid, was called primitive, was replaced with a system that positioned your people at the bottom of a hierarchy they did not build and did not choose. You were there when that happened. Some of you tried to resist it. Some of you were destroyed in the resistance. Some of you survived by adapting, by learning to move inside a world that was designed against you, by teaching your children to be fluent in the language of the system that oppressed you, not out of surrender, out of survival intelligence. I honor every choice you made under conditions that offered no good options. I am here at this altar because you survived, and I am bringing your wounds to the fire alongside mine. Because it is time for it to be treated, not sealed over, treated. So shall it be. The original wound has specific layers, and the fire needs to reach every one of them. The first layer is the wound of erasure. Something was taken from your bloodline that has no replacement. The specific knowing that was carried in the original language. Words that held entire cosmologies in their root structure. That encoded the relationship between human beings and the invisible world in ways that no translation fully captures. When the language was suppressed, the knowing went underground. It did not disappear. It went into the body. It became instinct. It became the pull towards certain practices that your upbringing could not explain. The sense of recognition when you encounter something from your ancestral tradition. The feeling of coming home to a place you have never physically been. The knowing that lives beneath the level of language and does not need language to operate. That knowing is still in you. The erasure did not complete its work. The fire confirms it. Fire moved through the wound of erasure in this bloodline. Every place where the original knowing was pushed underground, let it surface now, not as information, as the frequency that was always encoded in the blood, regardless of what the surface world did to suppress it. Let it rise. Let it be available. Let this body become a clear channel for what the erasure tried to bury. The knowing is not lost. It was waiting for the one in the line who was ready to receive it. I am ready. So shall it be. The second layer is the wound of disconnection, not just from the ancestral tradition, from each other. Displacement does something specific to a people. It takes those who are organized around shared cosmology, shared land, shared kinship structure, and scatters them. It puts distance between those who are supposed to be close. It creates conditions where the very people who need each other most are positioned as threats to each other, competing for the limited resources the system makes available, suspicious of each other because the system taught them that there is not enough room for all of them at the top. So they climb over each other toward a ceiling that was designed to be too low for everyone, and they call it individual failure when they cannot reach it. That disconnection lives in your bloodline. You feel it as the mistrust that arises around your own people, as the loneliness that persists even in community, as the competitive edge that fires up when someone from your background achieves something, instead of the collective pride that should be the natural response, because their win is your win. That is what the original kinship structure knew. What the disconnection made you forget. Fire, burn the wound of disconnection. Burn the installed suspicion. Burn the competitive reflex that was never the original nature of this people. Burn the loneliness that comes from being surrounded by your own and still feeling separate. And restore what was there before the disconnection. The recognition of shared frequency. The instinct toward collective rather than individual survival. The understanding that the elevation of one is not a threat to the others. It is a signal that the frequency is working. Restore it in this body. Restore it in this bloodline. So shall it be. The third layer is the wound of spiritual displacement. This is the deepest layer, because when a people's spiritual framework is disrupted, everything else follows. The spiritual framework is not one dimension of life. It is the architecture that organizes all other dimensions. It determines how you understand suffering, how you understand purpose, how you understand your relationship to the ancestors who came before and the descendants who will come after. How you understand power, where it comes from, access to it, what it is for. When the original spiritual framework was replaced, your ancestors were given a system that positioned them at the bottom. That told them the divine preferred their oppressors. That told them suffering in this life was acceptable, because reward was coming in another. That told them the power to change their circumstances was not in their hands, was not in their bloodline, was not in the ancestral connection that had organized their power for generations. That spiritual displacement is why some people in your line learn to pray without expecting a response, to worship without feeling the presence, to go through spiritual motions as ritual without experiencing spiritual power, because the framework they were given was not designed to activate their power. It was designed to manage it. Fire, burn the spiritual displacement. Every framework that was installed to keep this bloodline disconnected from its own spiritual authority. Every belief that positioned divine power as something external to this lineage, rather than something native to it. Every prayer posture that was borrowed from a tradition that was not built with this bloodline's liberation in mind. Burn it all. And in the ash, let the original knowing rise. The knowing that the ancestors are not distant, that the field is not closed, that the power that organized this bloodline before the disruption is still present, still accessible, still responsive. That prayer is not petition to something far away. It is activation of something already inside. Let that knowing become the operating system of this body from this moment forward. So shall it be. You have just done something enormous. You brought the original wound to the fire. Not just your present life pain, the source wound, the one that created the conditions for every other wound that followed, and the fire received it. All three layers, the erasure, the disconnection, the spiritual displacement. The flame did not flinch. It did not say this is too much. It said bring it all. Because the fire that burns at an ancestral altar has been receiving the pain of this lineage for longer than you have been alive. It knows the weight. It was built for the weight, and you are standing in it. Not burning, being refined. The work continues. Seal this layer, ancient ones. Let what was treated in this portion of the prayer not return. Let the wound of erasure be replaced by the fullness of original knowing. Let the wound of disconnection be replaced by restored kin. Ship, frequency. Let the wound of spiritual displacement be replaced by the native spiritual authority of this bloodline. What the fire touched, let it stay touched. What the fire cleared, let it stay clear. The altar has received the original wound. The bloodline is being restored at the source. So shall it be. Bring all your pain at the altar of fire. We are still at the altar. The fire has not dimmed. If anything, it is burning hotter now. Because the deeper you go, the more fuel there is. The original wound was treated in the last portion of this prayer. Now we move to what that wound produced. The generational patterns, the behavioral loops, the invisible scripts that run inside your relationships, your finances, your ambitions, your self-perception, without your conscious awareness, without your permission. Patterns that were written by circumstances you did not live through, but inherited nonetheless. Passed through the blood, passed through the nervous system, passed through the way your parents moved through the world, the way their parents moved through the world. Each generation absorbing the instructions of the one before, not because they chose to pass them, because unexamined patterns replicate themselves. That is simply what they do. Until someone stops. Until someone brings them to the fire. That someone is you. And today is the day. Ancestors, I call you as witnesses to help me see them clearly. Because some of what I am about to name was survival intelligence in your hands. It kept you alive. It kept the line moving. I honor that. But what was survival intelligence in your conditions has become limitation in mine. And I need to see it clearly, so I can release what no longer serves, while keeping what still does. The fire knows the difference. Stand with me as it does its work. So shall it be. The first generational pattern is the pattern of labor without return. This is deeply embedded in bloodlines that were forced into systems that extracted their labor and returned almost nothing. Your ancestors worked. They worked hard. They worked with the kind of discipline and endurance that built civilizations. And the wealth they built went everywhere but to them. That created a deep cellular instruction. An instruction that says, work is what we do. Return is not guaranteed. Do not expect the harvest to come back to the one who planted. You carry this pattern when you overwork and undercharge. When you give more than the agreement requires and do not ask for more than the agreement offered. When you produce at the level of someone who should be compensated generously and accept the compensation of someone who is grateful for anything. When you work until your body breaks and call it commitment. When you measure your worth by your output rather than by your presence. When rest makes you anxious because somewhere in the bloodline stopping meant danger. Stopping meant you were not useful, and not useful meant not safe. Fire. Burn the pattern of labor without return. Burn the cellular instruction that separated work from reward in this bloodline. Burn the anxiety that activates when I am not producing. Burn the belief that my value is located in my output. And install the original understanding that my labor has sovereign value. That the harvest belongs to the one who plants. That rest is not absence of contribution. It is the condition that makes sustainable contribution possible. That I do not have to earn my place in the world through exhaustion. My existence is the place. The labor follows from that, not the other way around. Let this pattern be broken at the root. In this body, in this bloodline, in this generation. So shall it be. The second generational pattern is the pattern of crisis as the normal state. Some bloodlines have lived so long in conditions of instability that the nervous system calibrated itself to crisis, not because the people were weak, because the environment made stillness impossible. There was always something, always a threat to navigate, always a fire to put out before you could think about building, always a situation requiring immediate response that pushed the long-term vision to another day. And eventually, the nervous system stopped expecting anything other than crisis. It stopped being able to tolerate stability, because stability felt unfamiliar, and unfamiliar felt like danger. You carry this pattern when things are going well, and something in you waits for the collapse. When you cannot fully enjoy a season of peace, because you are monitoring the perimeter for when the peace will end. when you unconsciously create drama to return to the state your nervous system recognizes as normal, when you are more comfortable problem solving than receiving, more comfortable in crisis than in abundance, more comfortable in the struggle than in the arrival. Because the struggle is what the bloodline knows. The arrival is unfamiliar territory, and unfamiliar territory triggers the alarm. Fire. Burn the nervous system calibration that made crisis the default. Burn the pattern that creates turbulence in seasons of peace. Burn the hypervigilance that cannot allow stillness. Burn the ancestral alarm that fires when things are going well, because good things coming was historically followed by good things being taken. And recalibrate. Let the new default be peace without suspicion, stillness without guilt. Let my nervous system learn that stability is safe, that arrival is not a trap, that I am allowed to land, to stay landed, to build from the landed position rather than from the perpetual motion of someone who has never been allowed to stop. So shall it be. The third generational pattern is the pattern of self-erasure in the presence of power. This pattern was built in conditions where visibility was dangerous, where being seen by the wrong people could end everything. Your ancestors learned to make themselves unnoticed, to move without drawing attention, to not shine too brightly in spaces where their brightness would be perceived as threat, to manage the perception of those in power over them with careful, strategic smallness. That was intelligence. In those conditions, it was survival. But the conditions changed, and the pattern did not. You carry this pattern when you walk into a room with an idea and leave without saying it. When you know the answer and wait to see if someone else will offer it first. When you achieve something significant and immediately minimize it before anyone else can. When you shrink the expression of your capacity to fit the comfort level of people who are not threatened by it. When you are brilliant in private and careful in public. When you apologize for taking up space that was always yours. When you feel the pull toward invisibility at the exact moment visibility would serve your purpose. That pull is not humility. It is an old instruction running in new conditions, and it is costing you the rooms you should be leading. Fire, burn the pattern of self-erasure. Burn the instruction that made smallness a survival strategy. Burn the reflex that minimizes before anyone else can diminish. Burn the apologetic posture that enters rooms asking permission to exist in them, and replace it with the posture of the original carrier, the one who walked into spaces knowing what they brought, who did not require external confirmation of their capacity before expressing it, who understood that their presence in a room changed the frequency of the room, and who did not shrink from that responsibility. I carry the original posture now. I walk into rooms at full height. I speak what I know. I take the space that the situation requires, without apology, without shrinking, without waiting for permission from people who would prefer I remain small. So shall it be. The fourth generational pattern is the pattern of broken trust. Your bloodline learned that trust was dangerous, that alliances could be dissolved by those with more power, whenever it served them, that agreements made with the powerful were not guaranteed to hold. That the people who smiled at the table could be the same people who moved against you when you turned away. That betrayal came from close quarters, from those who were supposed to be kin, from those who had the most access. Your ancestors did not invent suspicion. They learned it from repeated experience, from having their trust used as a weapon against them, from watching what happened to those who opened too fully in the wrong direction, and they passed the lesson forward. Keep something back. Never let anyone see the full picture. Keep the cards close, because you do not know when the alliance will shift. You carry this pattern as a closeness that people in your life interpret as coldness, as the wall that goes up just at the moment real intimacy becomes possible, as the part of you that holds back even in relationships that have demonstrated they are safe, as the instinct to protect the vision from the people closest to you, because at some level you do not trust that their proximity will not eventually be used to access what you are building. Fire, burn the pattern of broken trust, not the wisdom that knows the difference between safe and unsafe. Keep that. The bloodline needs that. But burn the blanket suspicion that cannot allow genuine connection even in safe conditions. Burn the wall that was built for one era and is now sealing out the relationships this season requires. Burn the closeness that is protecting you from nothing current and costing you the collaboration that would accelerate everything. Let the new instruction be discernment without paranoia, openness without naivety, trust that is extended thoughtfully and received with the fullness it deserves. So shall it be. Guardians of the ancestral fire. These 4 patterns have been running in this bloodline across generations. They have been confirmed by enough experience to feel like truth. But they are not truth. They are responses to conditions that have been passed down past the conditions that created them. They served the lying when they were written. They are limiting the lying now. I bring them all to the fire, the labor without return, the crisis as normal state, the self-erasure in the presence of power, the broken trust. Receive them. Burn what needs to burn. Preserve the wisdom that was underneath each one, the work ethic beneath the overwork, the resilience beneath the hypervigilance, the strategic intelligence beneath the smallness, the discernment beneath the suspicion. Keep the gold. Burn the dross. So shall it be. Bring all your pain at the altar of fire. This is the warfare portion of the prayer. Everything that came before this was preparation. The naming, the laying down, the original wound, the generational patterns, all of it was necessary. Because you do not go to war carrying what you just put down. You go to war clear. You go to war with both hands free. You go to war knowing exactly what you are fighting for and exactly what has been fighting against you. You are clear now. Your hands are free. You know the enemy. And this prayer is about to become a weapon. Ancestors, I am not calling you as sympathizers. I am calling you as warriors. The ones in the line who knew how to fight. Who knew what it was to stand against something that had more visible power and refused to yield. Who knew what it was to hold the frequency of the bloodline when everything external was pressing against it. Who knew what it was to decree into the invisible world when the visible world offered nothing but resistance. those ancestors. I need you on the field with me now. This is not a moment for the quiet ones. This is a moment for the warriors. So shall it be. I open the decree. To every structure of poverty that has operated in this bloodline, I see you. I have named your architecture. I have named your layers. I have burned your foundation in this prayer. And now I decree your complete and total removal from every area of my life. From my finances, from my mindset, from my nervous system, from my cellular memory, from my relationship to money, from my relationship to abundance, from my relationship to my own worth. You have no authority here. You were installed by systems that no longer have jurisdiction over this bloodline. Your eviction is effective now, not at the end of this prayer. Now, I command every poverty frequency to leave the field of my body, leave the field of my home, leave the field of my business, leave the field of my relationships, leave the field of my children's inheritance. You are done here. So shall it be. To every spirit of lack that was assigned to this lineage, your assignment is cancelled. The authority that commissioned you has been stripped. You were sent to keep this bloodline in perpetual survival mode, to ensure that every time prosperity approached, something disrupted it before it could land, to create the pattern where money comes in and leaves before it can compound, where opportunity arrives and collapses at the threshold, where the breakthrough keeps getting pushed one season further. Your operation in this bloodline is finished. I cancel it with ancestral authority, with the authority of every elder in my line who prayed without seeing the result, with the authority of every ancestor who held the vision in impossible conditions, with the authority of the fire that has been burning at this altar longer than your assignment has been active. You are cancelled. So shall it be. To every door that was closed against this bloodline without just cause, I decree that you open. The doors that were shut because of the name, the doors that were shut because of the face, the doors that were shut because the person knocking came from a lineage that the gatekeepers had decided should not enter. The doors that were shut by systems designed to limit access. The doors that were shut by people who mistook their prejudice for discernment. The doors that were shut by institutions that assessed the value of this bloodline and returned a number that had nothing to do with our actual capacity. Every one of those doors, I decree them open now. Not because I am asking permission, because the authority that closed them has been revoked at the ancestral level. And what the ancestral field opens, no human gatekeeping can keep shut. The doors are open. I walk through them at full height, without apology, without waiting to be invited. The invitation is my birthright. So shall it be. To every stolen inheritance, I call you back now. The financial inheritance that should have compounded across generations and reached me already built. I call it back. The cultural inheritance that was suppressed and scattered. The knowledge systems, the healing traditions, the agricultural wisdom, the architectural intelligence, the spiritual technologies that organized this lineage's relationship to power before the disruption. I call them back, not as artifacts, as living intelligence available to me in this present moment. The relational inheritance, the kinship structures that created genuine collective power, the understanding of how a people move as one organism towards shared elevation. I call it back. The health inheritance, the ancestral knowledge of how to maintain the body in alignment with the land, the seasons, the invisible architecture of well-being that the original healers in my line carried. I call it back. Everything that was taken, everything that was suppressed, everything that was declared invalid so that something inferior could replace it. I am calling it all back to this bloodline, with compounded interest. For every generation it was withheld, so shall it be. To the ancestral field itself, I decree a frequency upgrade in this bloodline. Effective today, the frequency of survival is replaced by the frequency of sovereignty. The frequency of scarcity is replaced by the frequency of abundance. The frequency of disconnection is replaced by the frequency of kinship. The frequency of spiritual displacement is replaced by the frequency of native authority. The frequency of pain as identity is replaced by the frequency of the warrior who moved through pain and came out carrying fire. I am not the same frequency I was when this prayer began. I have been upgraded at the altar, and everything that was calibrated to the old frequency must recalibrate now. My body, my relationships, my financial reality, my opportunities, my daily experience, all of it must rise to match the new frequency or leave my field. There is no middle position. You match the upgrade or you exit. That is the decree. So shall it be. Ancestors, seal the warfare. Let every decree spoken in this portion of the prayer be backed by the full authority of the ancestral field. Let it not return void. Let it accomplish exactly what it was sent to accomplish. The poverty structure, gone. The spirit of lack, gone. The closed doors, open. The stolen inheritance, returned. The frequency upgrade, active. Let the field confirm what was decreed in fire, and let the evidence begin to appear in the visible world in the correct order and in the correct timing. The warfare is complete. The victory is already written in the ancestral field. We are simply watching the visible world catch up to what the invisible world already knows. So shall it be. So shall it be. Bring all your pain at the altar of fire. You are almost through the fire. Not almost through in the sense that you are nearly done suffering. Almost through in the sense that you are about to step out the other side. And what is on the other side is not the same landscape you entered from. You cannot walk through an altar of fire for this long. Cannot bring this much. Cannot stand in this flame without moving. And come out the same. Something fundamental has shifted. Not in the future. Already. In this hour. In this prayer. In the invisible architecture of your life that the visible world has not yet caught up to. The field has already changed. What you see in the coming days, weeks, and months is the visible world rearranging itself to match what happened here. That rearrangement will not always look like blessing. Sometimes it will look like things falling away. Relationships that no longer match the new frequency. Situations that cannot sustain themselves, what's the underlying energy that was feeding them has been removed. Patterns that try to reassert themselves and find that the soil that sustained them has been burned. Do not call that loss. Call it confirmation. Confirmation that the altar worked. The fire did its job. That the field is responding to what was decreed. Ancient ones, I receive the final transmission of this prayer, not as a closing ritual, as a commissioning, because this is not the end of the work. This is the moment I am sent back into my life as someone different, someone who has been through fire, someone whose bloodline has been treated at the source, someone who carries the decree that was spoken in part 7 as a living authority rather than as words that were said and forgotten. I receive the commissioning now. So shall it be. Let us speak now about what you are being commissioned to carry. The first thing you carry out of this fire is clarity. Not the clarity that comes from having all the answers. The clarity that comes from knowing which questions matter. From knowing the difference between what is yours to address and what belongs to the field to handle. From knowing your own frequency well enough to recognize when something is pulling you off it. The noise of the world will be loud when you step away from this altar. The demands will be immediate. The circumstances will present themselves the way circumstances always do. Urgent, pressing, requiring your full attention before you have had time to integrate what happened in this prayer. Let it be the filter through which you receive everything that comes at you. Your children, or the children of your community, or the people your work touches who you will never meet. They will begin further forward because you did this work today. Because you brought your pain to the altar instead of passing it forward. Because you chose the fire instead of the familiar. Because you stood in the flame long enough for the refinement to complete. That is a responsibility that comes with weight. Carry it with full awareness of what it means. And let the weight of it be the kind that does not crush. The kind that grounds. The kind that makes you walk differently. With more intention. More precision. More of the sovereign quality that knows every choice is building something that outlasts the moment. Ancestors, speak the final word over this one who stood at your fire today. Who brought everything. Who held nothing back. Who did not retreat when the flame burned what they had not expected to lose. Who stayed. Speak the ancestral confirmation over them now. Let them hear it in the frequency beneath language. Let it register in the body before it reaches the mind. Let it settle in the bones as knowledge that does not require repetition because it is now structural. You are seen. Not the version of you that manages and performs and holds the weight with a steady face. The actual you. The one underneath the performance. The one who has been tired in ways that rest does not cure. The one who has kept faith in a vision that has taken longer than it should. The one who has loved people past the point of return and grieved the loss quietly. The one who has faced the doubt in the dark hours and decided to keep going anyway. That one, seen, fully, without condition, without the requirement to be further along before you are worthy of being seen. Right here, right now, exactly where you are. You are known. The ancestral field knows your name, knows the frequency you carry, knows what you were built for, knows the full scope of what you came to do. Even when you have forgotten, Even when the circumstances made the vision feel like delusion, the field held the record, and the field confirms today. The vision is accurate. The purpose is real. The capacity is present. You are in process, and the process is working. You are covered. You did not come to this altar alone. You were accompanied by every ancestor who found their way to their own fire, who did their version of this work in whatever form was available to them. They are the cloud that stands at the perimeter of your life, not watching passively, actively invested, because your elevation is the completion of what they began. Your breakthrough is the answer to prayers they prayed without seeing the result. You carry them with you out of this fire, and they carry you. That is the ancestral agreement. Mutual, reciprocal, as old as the line itself. We close this prayer now, not as an ending, as a sending. Altar of fire, thank you for receiving everything that was brought today, for not flinching at the weight of it, for burning what needed to burn, for refining what was always gold beneath the dross, for returning what the pain was storing, for confirming what the doubt was questioning, for holding the full frequency of this bloodline intact through every layer of this prayer. Ancestors, thank you for the accompaniment, for meeting us in the fire, for standing as witnesses to the work, for lending your authority to the decrees, for receiving the wounds that were older than this generation, for speaking the confirmation that settles in the bones. Ancient ones, thank you for holding the original frequency, for making sure it was here when we arrived, for keeping it intact through every generation of disruption, for making it available the moment a carrier was ready to receive it. The carrier was ready today. The frequency has been received. The bloodline is changed. Not tomorrow, not when the circumstances confirm it. Now, in the invisible architecture that the visible world will spend the coming season catching up to. The altar has received everything that was brought. The fire has done everything fire does, and the one who walked in carrying pain walks out carrying fire. That is the exchange. That has always been the exchange. Pain surrendered at the altar. Fire returned to the carrier. Go and burn. So shall it be. The altar comes down. You are still in it. Do not pretend otherwise. You came back today anyway. That is not small. That is the most important thing you have done this week. Because the poverty altar does not fall because you felt inspired. It falls because you showed up on the days you did not feel anything. On the days the circumstances had not changed. On the days the evidence was still against you. You showed up on those days. That is what breaks generational cycles. Not the good days, the ones like today. Now hear what the altar has been doing. The poverty altar in your bloodline is not a metaphor. It is a living structure, built from every generation that was told their labor had no value. Built from every elder who worked to exhaustion and died with nothing to pass forward. Built from every ancestor who reached for something more and was pushed back by a system designed to keep them small. Built from the silence that followed. The silence that said, do not want too much. Do not build too high. Do not trust prosperity because prosperity is not for people like us. That silence became instruction. That instruction became pattern. That pattern became the invisible ceiling you keep hitting. The relationship that takes and never fills. The opportunity that dissolves in your hands. The money that arrives and disappears before you can stabilize. The exhaustion that has no medical name. The sense that no matter how hard you move, something is pulling against you. That is the altar. Still standing. Still receiving your energy as sacrifice. Still feeding on the life force of the person reading these words right now. Day 8 is a demolition. We enter the fire now. Ancestors of my bloodline, I call you as warriors. Not as observers. Not as distant presences watching me struggle. As warriors who have been waiting for this exact moment. The moment when one in the line finally stopped accepting the altar as permanent. I am that one. I stand at the altar of poverty that has fed on this bloodline for generations. I name what it has taken. It took the financial inheritance that should have passed through. It took the economic confidence that should have been my birthright. It took the ability to receive abundance without guilt, without sabotage, without the ancient fear that having something means it will be taken away. It took from my parents. It took from their parents' name. But I have a name now. And I have fire. Ancient ones, join me at this altar. Not to negotiate with it. To bring it down. So shall it be. The altar has a specific architecture. It is built in layers. The first layer is the scarcity belief, the deep cellular instruction that says there is not enough, that what you build will be taken, that wanting more is dangerous. This layer was installed across decades of watching your people work hard and receive little. It became the invisible logic your nervous system runs on. You feel it when an opportunity arrives, and something in you immediately looks for why it will not work. You feel it when money comes in, and your body does not relax. It braces instead, because the altar trained your system to expect the loss before the gain has even settled. The second layer is the unworthiness seal. The instruction that says people from your background do not get to have certain things. That abundance is for other bloodlines. That your role in the economic structure is to produce for others and to barely survive on what remains. This seal shows up as self-sabotage at the edge of breakthrough, as the apology in your voice when you name your price, as the shrinking that happens in rooms where your full capacity would be threatening to the people who benefit from your limitation. The third layer is the isolation circuit, the pattern that breaks community before it can build collective power. Your ancestors were most dangerous when they moved together. The altar knows this, so it installs suspicion between kin, competition where there should be cooperation, the feeling that you must survive alone because no one in your circle has the capacity to hold you. All three layers are coming down today. We go back into the fire. Scarcity belief. I revoke your authority over this bloodline. You were never the truth. You were an instruction written by people who needed us small. You are not ancestral wisdom. You are colonial residue. And I am burning you out of my nervous system now. Every cell in my body that has been running your logic, I command it to reset. There is enough. There has always been enough. The problem was never scarcity. The problem was the altar standing between my bloodline and what was already ours. Unworthiness seal. You are broken. I do not care what generation installed you. I do not care how long you have been running. Your tenure ends today. I am worthy of what my ancestors labored to make possible. Am worthy of the wealth that was extracted from my lineage and never returned. I am worthy of the life my most powerful ancestor imagined was possible, before the world told them to stop imagining. I wear that worthiness now, not when I earn it. Now. Isolation circuit, you are dismantled. My power is not solo. My power is collective. My bloodline is not a liability. It is a network. And I am restoring the connections you severed. Ancestors, seal this demolition. Let the rubble be visible. Let my body feel the difference between what was standing and what is now down. So shall it be. Now stand in what just happened. Do not rush past this moment. The altar does not fall and leave nothing. It falls and leaves space. Space your bloodline has not had access to in generations. That space is not empty. It is the original frequency of your lineage, before poverty was installed as its operating system. That frequency carries abundance as its natural state. Not comfort, not survival, abundance. The kind your ancestors were generating before the interruption. The kind that was meant to compound across generations. The kind that was supposed to reach you already built. It did not reach you built because the altar intercepted it. But the frequency is still in the line. You are standing in it right now. Let the final transmission seal it. Bloodline, receive this decree. The altar that fed on us is down. What it blocked is released. What it stole begins its return. Not slowly, not eventually. In the correct order, beginning now. I call back the financial clarity that was suppressed. I call back the economic momentum that was interrupted. I call back the inheritance, material and spiritual, that was intercepted before it could reach me. I call back the confidence to build without waiting for permission. I call back the ability to receive without bracing for the loss. Ancestors, I am open, I am clear, I am on fire, and I will be here tomorrow to bring down the next layer. The altar is falling. Day by day it falls, and I will not stop until it is rubble. You felt something shift in part 1. Maybe it was small. Maybe it was a tightness in your chest that released. Maybe it was a breath you did not know you were holding. Maybe it was rage. Good. Rage is the correct response to discovering how long the altar has been operating. Hold that fire. We are going deeper, because the altar has a basement, and most people never reach it. They clear the surface layers. They do the work. They feel better, and then 6 months later, the same pattern resurfaces, wearing a different face. Different relationship. Same dynamic. Different opportunity. Same collapse at the threshold. Different season. Same financial ceiling. That is not failure. That is the basement speaking. The part of the altar that did not get touched the first time. Today, we go to the basement. Here is what lives there. The first thing in the basement is the grief that was never held. Your ancestors lost things they never got to mourn. Children. Names. Futures that were mapped and then erased. They did not have the luxury of grief. Survival did not allow it. So they kept moving. They built what they could. They pushed the grief down because going down with it was not an option. But grief that is pushed down does not disappear. It becomes weight. It becomes the low-grade sorrow that has no source. the tiredness that sleep does not cure, the feeling of loss that follows you into rooms where there is nothing to lose. You have been carrying their unmourned grief in your nervous system, not as a burden they intended to pass, as a container they had nowhere else to put it. You are the one who can finally set it down, not by bypassing it, by acknowledging it, by standing in front of the ancestral field and saying, I see what was lost. I see what was taken. I see what they carried so I would not have to. And I am releasing the weight of it now, not releasing the memory, the weight. Those are two different things. The second thing in the basement is the interrupted destiny. Is an ancestor in your line who was supposed to break through. They had the intelligence. They had the vision. They had the drive. Something stopped them. A system. A betrayal. An illness that arrived at the wrong moment. A door that was closed because of who they were. They did not get to finish. And because they did not get to finish, the momentum they were building collapsed back into the bloodline. It did not disappear. It compacted. It became potential that had nowhere to go. You feel it as restlessness, as the sense that you are capable of something larger than your current circumstances reflect, as the frustration that arrives when you can see the vision clearly, but the path keeps getting blocked. That is not your frustration alone. That is theirs, compounded, waiting for the carrier who would finally complete what they started. The third thing in the basement is the stolen agreement. At some point in your ancestral line, a deal was made under duress. An agreement signed without full freedom. A contract accepted because the alternative was worse. Land traded for survival. Power surrendered to avoid destruction. Identity exchanged for access. These forced agreements left energetic signatures in the bloodline. Signatures that say, we do not negotiate from strength. We accept what is offered because asking for more is dangerous. We take the smaller portion because taking the full portion was never safe. You feel this every time you underprice your work. Every time you accept less than the agreement deserved. Every time you walk away from a negotiation, knowing you left power on the table. That is the stolen agreement still running. Still governing your posture in rooms where you should be standing at full height. Today, that agreement is voided. We enter the fire. Ancestors, I stand at the basement of the altar. I see what is stored here. I am not afraid of it. I am not moving around it. I am walking straight into it with fire in my hands. To the unmourned grief of every elder who kept moving when they deserved to stop and be held. I see you. I name what was lost. I do not look away from the magnitude of it. And I release you from the contract of carrying it through me. It ends here. The grief is acknowledged. The weight is lifted. You are free to rest. And I am free to move, without your sorrow in my bones. To the interrupted destiny of every ancestor who almost made it. I see the vision they were carrying. I recognize it because it lives in me. It never died. It only waited. I am picking up what they were forced to put down. I am completing the arc they began. The momentum that compacted when they were stopped. I am releasing it now. Let it move through me. Let it build in this generation what it could not build in theirs. Their interruption is over. My continuation is active. To the stolen agreements that were signed in my bloodline's name without full consent.
I void them. Every agreement made under duress. Every contract signed when the only other option was destruction. Every negotiation that ended in my lineage walking away with less than they were owed. Those agreements have no authority over me. I did not sign them, and I do not inherit their terms. I negotiate from my ancestors' original strength, not from the posture fear installed. I stand at full height. I ask for the full portion. I walk away from anything that requires me to make myself smaller to receive it. The stolen agreements are cancelled. Basement is on fire. So shall it be. Now feel what is different. Not in the future. Right now. Something in your chest. Something in your shoulders. Something in the way the air sits around you. That is the altar losing structural integrity. That is what it feels like when something that has been load-bearing in the wrong direction finally comes down. It doesn't always feel triumphant at first. Sometimes it feels like vertigo. Like the ground shifted. Like you are standing in a space that used to have walls, and now the walls are gone. That is correct. The walls were the altar, and you have been living inside it. Now you are outside it, for possibly the first time in the history of your bloodline. Let that land. What you are doing right now has not been done in your lineage before. Not like this. Not with this level of specificity. Not with the deliberate naming and deliberate destruction of each layer. Your ancestors prayed. Your ancestors endured. Your ancestors survived. You are doing something different. The architecture of what made survival necessary. That is a different category of work. And the field knows it. We seal part 2. Bloodline, receive this transmission. The basement is cleared. The grief is acknowledged and released. The interrupted destiny is retrieved and activated. The stolen agreements are voided with ancestral authority. The altar has no foundation left to stand on. What was held in place by generational suffering is now held by nothing. It is coming down, and I am not watching it fall. I am the one pulling it down. Day by day, layer by layer, decree by decree, until there is nothing left of it. And my children inherit a field that has been cleared. Not a field that requires them to start where I started. A field where they begin further forward. Because I did the work today. Ancestors, close this transmission. Seal what has been broken. Guard the space that has been cleared. Let nothing return to fill it that does not belong to the original frequency of this lineage. We are not done, but the altar knows we are coming. To shake. So shall it be. And so it is forever. Monitor. Spirits scatter and die. You felt it before you could name it. That sense that every time you get close, something shifts. Not outside you, around you. Like the air changes when a breakthrough is approaching. Like something that was watching you suddenly moves. Like an invisible alarm goes off in a realm you cannot see, and a report gets filed, and a response gets dispatched before your blessing can land. You are not imagining it. You have never been imagining it. There are spirits whose entire assignment is to watch you, not to attack you directly, to watch you, to monitor your movements, to track your financial decisions, to observe when favor is approaching and report it back before it reaches your hands. Monitoring spirits do not fight you in the open. They work in the intelligence layer. They are the reason the opportunity evaporated before you could close it. They are the reason the person who was going to connect you suddenly went cold. They are the reason the door that was opening sealed itself before your hand reached the handle. They fed the information forward, and something on the other side acted on the report. This has been happening in your bloodline for generations. An invisible surveillance system embedded in your lineage, watching every move, reporting every advance, ensuring that nothing breaks through without a counter-response already in position. That system ends tonight. Ancestors of truth and fire, I call you now. Great ancestral mothers who moved in secret because you knew something was watching. Rise now. You were right to move quietly. You felt the eyes even when you could not see them. Rise now and help me blind what you could not reach. Great ancestral fathers who built in silence because open plans always got intercepted. Rise now. You were not paranoid. You were accurate. Rise now and stand with me as we dismantle the surveillance network that followed this family. Bloodline warriors who tried to break free and felt the counterattack arrive too fast. Rise now. The counterattack was too fast because the enemy had intelligence. Tonight, we cut the intelligence line. Rise, rise, rise. Let me tell you how monitoring spirits operate. Because you cannot destroy what you do not understand, and the enemy has counted on your ignorance of this system for too long. A monitoring spirit is not a fighter, it is a watcher. It is assigned to a specific bloodline or individual, and its sole function is surveillance and reporting. It watches your prayer life. It observes when your faith rises and files that report, so discouragement can be dispatched before the answer arrives. It monitors your financial movements. It sees when income is approaching and alerts the spirit of lack, so a counter expense arrives at the same time. It tracks your relationships. It identifies who is about to connect you to your next level and files that report so that relationship can be disrupted before the connection is made. It observes your business ideas. It watches you move from inspiration to planning and reports back so that the right obstacle can be placed at the right point in the process. It follows your children. It watches which child has the greatest anointing to break the generational pattern, and it files that report so extra resistance can be assigned to that child specifically. This is organized. This is intelligent. This is deliberate. And it has been running against your bloodline without interruption. Until right now. Because a monitoring spirit has one critical weakness. It can only operate where it is unseen. The moment it is identified, its power collapses. You cannot monitor what is looking directly at you. We are looking directly at you right now. Every monitoring spirit assigned to this bloodline, I see you now. I know your position. I know your assignment. I know your reporting chain. I know what you have been watching. I know what you have been filing. And I know that an exposed monitor is a disabled monitor. Your cover is gone. Ancestors, activate the fire of exposure now. Let every monitoring spirit embedded in this bloodline surface. Let every watcher assigned to this lineage be dragged into the open. Let every invisible eye positioned over this family be identified right now. Financial monitoring spirits that tracked every income movement surface now. You watched every deposit. You filed every report when abundance was approaching. You ensured the counter expense arrived on time. I see you. Your position is known. Your assignment is cancelled. Prayer monitoring spirits that watched every intercession this bloodline raised surface now. You observed every prayer. You filed reports on rising faith so discouragement could arrive before the answer. You intercepted the intelligence of this bloodline's spiritual warfare. I see you. Your position is known. Your assignment is cancelled. Relationship monitoring spirits that tracked every divine connection approaching this lineage surface now. You watched who was being sent. You filed reports on incoming alignments so disruption could be dispatched before the connection was made. You separated this bloodline from its divine network deliberately and with intelligence. I see you. Your position is known. Your assignment is cancelled. Business monitoring spirits that followed every idea from inspiration to execution surface now. You watched the seed before it was planted. Reports at every stage of development, so the right obstacle could meet the right moment. You turned divine timing against this bloodline by knowing the schedule before we did. I see you. Your position is known. Your assignment is cancelled. Generational monitoring spirits embedded in this bloodline, root generations before I was born, surface now. You were installed before my name existed. You have been running surveillance on this family line since before living memory. You know everything that has moved through this bloodline. And you are terrified right now because something in this bloodline finally knows you. I see you. Your position is known. Your assignment is cancelled. Children monitoring spirits assigned to track the anointing in the next generation surface now. You identified the breaker child. You filed that report. You ensured extra resistance was assigned to the one with the most potential. You will not touch this generation. I see you. Your position is known. Your assignment is cancelled. Ancestors begin the directional sweep. In the north, every monitoring post positioned to watch the financial flow of this bloodline destroyed. In the south, every surveillance station embedded in the ancestral root of this family demolished. In the east, every watching spirit positioned to intercept incoming alignments and connections blinded. In the west, every reporting spirit assigned to file intelligence back to poverty headquarters struck down. Above, every aerial monitoring platform watching this bloodline from above dismantled. Below, every underground surveillance route embedded beneath this family's foundation pulled out and burned. Every monitoring post destroyed. Every surveillance station demolished. Every watching position vacated. Every reporting line severed. Now we move to the destruction. Ancestors activate hammers of judgment. Do not negotiate with watchers. I destroy them. Strike now. Every monitoring spirit assigned to this bloodline, scatter now. Not later. Not gradually. Now. Scatter. Financial watchers, your eyes go dark. You will never again file a report on this bloodline's income. You will never again alert the spirit of lack when abundance is approaching. You will never again intercept a financial blessing before it lands. Your vision is gone. Scatter and die. Prayer watchers, your ears go deaf. You will never again hear the intercessions of this bloodline. You will never again report rising faith so discouragement can be deployed. You will never again intercept the spiritual intelligence of this family. Your hearing is gone. Scatter and die. Relationship watchers, your knowledge is erased. Every connection you reported on, restored. Every alignment you disrupted, reconnected. Every divine relationship you separated this bloodline from, returning now. Your files are burned. Scatter and die. Business watchers, your intelligence is void. Every idea you reported on, advancing now, without counter-resistance. Every stage of development you sabotaged, rebuilt, and accelerating. Every opportunity you intercepted, returned to this bloodline with interest. Your reports are ash. Scatter and die. Generational watchers embedded in this bloodline route. Your installation is terminated. You were placed before I was born. You are removed before this transmission ends. Every generation of intelligence you gathered about this family, burned. Every file you built over centuries, incinerated. Every report you filed since the beginning of this bloodline surveillance, erased from every record in every realm. Your history in this bloodline is over. Scatter and die. Poverty headquarters, your intelligence network is gone. The watchers are blind. The reporters are deaf. The files are ash. You are operating without intelligence now. You cannot counter what you cannot see. You cannot intercept what you cannot track. You cannot dispatch resistance to a breakthrough you have no report on. This bloodline now moves in spiritual invisibility. Every advance unseen by the enemy. Every breakthrough arriving without counter-resistance. Every divine connection forming without interception. Every financial harvest landing without a prepared counter-expense. We move now without watchers. Ancestors seal every surveillance access point in this bloodline. Every entry point a monitoring spirit used to embed itself in this lineage, sealed by ancestral fire. Every reporting channel that ran from this bloodline to poverty headquarters severed permanently. Every surveillance frequency this family operated on, disrupted forever. The watchers cannot return. The posts cannot be rebuilt. The intelligence network cannot be restored. This bloodline is now dark to the enemy. Dark to surveillance. Dark to monitoring. Dark to every system that reported our movements and sabotaged our advances. And dark to the enemy means light to us. Now, be still. Feel what is different in this atmosphere. Something that was always present is no longer present. That weight of being watched. That sense of invisible eyes on every decision. That feeling that something always knew your next move before you made it. It is gone. Because the watchers are gone. And what moves forward from this moment moves forward unseen. Advances. This bloodline moves now without surveillance. Every income stream flowing without a monitoring spirit filing a counter-report. Every business decision executing without an invisible watcher alerting the resistance. Every investment landing without an interceptor positioned to drain it before it grows. Relational connections this bloodline receives now without interception. Every divine alignment forming without a watcher filing a disruption report. Every connection that was blocked because the enemy knew it was coming, now arriving unannounced. Every relationship that was separated, returning because the intelligence that kept it separated is gone. Spiritual advances this bloodline makes now without counterintelligence. Every prayer rising without a monitoring spirit reporting it back. Every declaration landing without a watcher alerting the counterforce. Every breakthrough approaching without resistance pre-positioned, because the surveillance that would have warned them is blind. Children of this bloodline advancing now without watchers on their path. The one with the breaking anointing moves now without extra resistance. The one who was targeted because of their potential moves now without the intelligence system that identified them. Every child of this lineage walks forward without invisible eyes tracking their every step. Ancestors of truth and fire seal this deliverance now. Every monitoring spirit that scattered, banned from returning. Every surveillance post that was destroyed, unable to rebuild. Every reporting line that was severed, unable to reconnect. Every intelligence file that was burned, unable to be reconstructed. This bloodline operates from this moment in a new dimension. A dimension the enemy has no map of. A dimension no watcher has filed a report on. A dimension where every advance is a surprise. Every breakthrough is unexpected by the resistance. Every harvest lands before the counter-expense can be dispatched. because the Watchers are gone, and we are free by the enemy. I am unsurveilled by poverty spirits. I move in dimensions the resistance has no intelligence on. My bloodline advances without interception from this moment forward. Monitoring spirits, your assignment is permanently terminated. Scatter and die. Enough is enough. Monitoring spirits, scatter and die. We did not finish with exposure. We finished with freedom. But freedom has a next chapter. And the next chapter is not celebration. The next chapter is occupation. When a surveillance system is dismantled, the territory it was monitoring does not automatically fill with light. Something must move into the space the Watchers left behind. Something must occupy the positions they vacated. Something must take the ground, because empty ground does not stay empty. And a bloodline that scattered its monitors but did not occupy the territory will find new Watchers embedded before the week is done. We are not leaving this ground empty. We are occupying it, right now. Ancestors of truth and fire, this is the occupation phase. Great ancestral mothers who prayed for eyes to see what was hidden, rise now and take the watching positions the enemy vacated. You prayed for discernment. You asked for spiritual sight. The position is open now. Take it. Great ancestral fathers who stood as watchmen over this family, rise now and occupy the surveillance posts we just destroyed. The posts are empty. The positions are cleared. Stand there now with ancestral fire and watch over what the enemy was watching against. Bloodline warriors, take every vacated monitoring position now. The enemy's Watchers are gone. Our ancestral guardians take their place. What was used to surveil us is now used to protect us. Ancestral Watchers in position now. Every financial movement of this bloodline covered by ancestral eyes. No enemy intelligence can penetrate what ancestral fire is watching over. Every relationship connection forming in this lineage covered by ancestral sight. The divine alignments move now under ancestral protection, not enemy surveillance. Every business advance this bloodline makes, covered by ancestral intelligence. We move with information now. The enemy moves blind. That is the reversal. That is what happens when a monitoring system is not just destroyed, but replaced. Now I want to speak to something deeper. Because the monitoring spirit conversation is not only about invisible Watchers in a spiritual realm. It is about the internal monitoring system the enemy installed inside you. The one that runs in your own mind. The internal voice that watches every idea you have and immediately files a negative report. That will not work. That has been tried before. That is too big for someone like you. That voice is not your voice. That is a monitoring spirit that was internalized so deeply over so many generations that it began to sound like your own thoughts. Your great-grandmother heard it. Your grandmother heard it and called it wisdom. Your mother heard it and called it being realistic. You hear it and call it self-awareness. It is none of those things. It is a surveillance report being filed from inside your own mind against your own potential. And it ends right now. Internal monitoring systems embedded in the minds of this bloodline, I address you now. Every internal voice that was installed by generational exposure to lack and surveillance, I pull you out by the root. The voice that says, this will not work, silence now. The voice that says, you are not qualified, silence now. The voice that says, people like you do not get these kinds of opportunities, silence now. The voice that says, be careful, do not want too much, do not reach too high, do not expect too much, silence now. That voice was monitoring your ambition and reporting it back to your own fear. Most sophisticated surveillance tool the enemy had. Internal, invisible, sounding like wisdom, operating as sabotage. Ancestors pull every internalized monitoring spirit from the minds of this bloodline now. Every thought pattern installed by generational surveillance dismantled. Every mental habit of self-monitoring for the enemy broken. Every internal reporting system that fired